podcast called Jellison Podcast.
He probably doesn't remember this at all.
Yeah, we work together. It's easy.
This is kind of real, like holy shit.
And so it's really cool to get to be a part of that.
Hey, you know how it is, Bill. Hey, when
you now tune into the biggest ever.
We're not here just to take part. We're here to take over.
I don't remember that. That's crazy.
What's up, everyone? We're back with episode 164 of the Jellison Podcast. Join me all the way from the Netherlands, now a two-time guest, Matt Haarms. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on again.
Yes, sir. After the first one, I know I had to have you back on. It was an awesome one, and everybody really enjoyed it. Just to start off, I mean, I said it off the top, but you're back in the Netherlands right now, back home with your parents, actually. Talk a little bit about why you're back there and what you've been doing here in the quote unquote off season, even though it's not really an off season for you.
Right. For most of the American guys, this is like prime off season. But for me, as an actual European, I'm back at home to go represent my national team. We have a huge tournament coming up in September, Eurobasket. So I'm over here preparing for that. And it's all in Amsterdam. Thank goodness I'm from Amsterdam. So I just get to live with my parents, go to practice every day, come back here and, get some nice home cooked meals from mom. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. Just getting, I'm basically in like full training camp mode already. We're practicing every single day. Went for a solid 3 hours today, lifting, shoot, like basketball practice, like going full 5-on-5. So I'm right back into it. Just getting ready for this tournament. And then right after that, back to Germany.
You said the home cooked meals. What's like the go-to meal in Amsterdam or the Netherlands? Like when you were growing up, what was that one that's like, okay, this is the one I'm excited for?
I don't know. I think my mom just cooks really well. I think everyone's mom is the best cook, right? Like,
yeah.
My mom, like everyone's mom should be the best cook ever. I think my mom's such a good cook. And there's nothing really like in particular I go home for, but just like I go home and I'm just like 5 meals in, I'm like, these are all just hits after hit after hit. It's not like I go home and like 2 weeks in, I'm still like hasn't been an L yet. Like wins only, like all-star hits only. So that's good. I think that's a good thing. It's not like, I'm here 3 days and then the bad dishes start coming out.
Yeah.
But it's just anything she makes, man. The traditional Dutch, like I don't really know about like Dutch cuisine like that. I don't think there is much. A lot of it is the classic Dutch like meal for like a random family is just like potatoes, vegetables, and some type of meat, which is just very boring, very basic.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just kind of like, it's not like French cuisine, which is all fancy and stuff. We just eat pretty basic, but it's good. It's good food.
Yeah, fair enough. So what's it been like playing with the national team and practicing with them thus far?
It's been really fun, man. It's kind of get to like speak my own language again. So our coach is actually an Italian coach. So he doesn't speak any Dutch, but just with the guys, just a lot of them before I played with them, I knew of them, just didn't really know them personally or had met them like once or twice. But now, like getting to know them, kind of becoming a part of this community with them has been super fun, kind of growing into a team with them. I still have my in-season, I still have my club team over in Germany that I play with, but just kind of coming home and getting to represent your country is super fun, like really awesome just to be like, we are the Dutch national team. We are what the Netherlands is going to send. We're going to represent our country. That's just such an honor. And it's really fun to be able to do that for your country.
Mm-hmm. Is DD Gregorius from Netherlands?
Is he a baseball player?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know baseball at all.
Fair enough.
Identify my one sports weakness. Don't talk to me about baseball.
Fair enough. He used to play for the Yankees, and I was a big fan of him. But I thought he was from the Netherlands, but I couldn't remember.
So there's a possibility. You have like the little Caribbean islands, because those guys all love baseball, right? So you had Curacao, Aruba, and Bonaire used to be Dutch colonies, but now I think they're all independent and free. So some of those guys used to come play for the Netherlands.
Mm-hmm.
We won like a world championship even like that's like 12 years ago or like 15 years ago at this point. But yeah, it might be like one of those guys. Now they're all like free independent. I believe they're all free independent nations at this point. So he's just Aruban or Curaçaoan or Bonairean.
Yeah, because you guys would play in the World Baseball Classic. It's like every 4 years, like the World Cup of baseball, I think.
Right.
I think you guys are always like pretty good.
That's
Obviously,
because those little, it's 3 little islands. That's all we got. And in St. Martin as well. We have half of that. We had half of that. I'm not sure they might still have that, but it's like, because half of it's French, half of it's Dutch.
mm,
So those couple little islands, and those guys freaking love baseball. It's like, the whole Caribbean area, they love baseball over there. So I think it's awesome. But I'm not sure if they're still playing for the Netherlands or if they've decided to go play for their actual country now that they're like independent.
mhm.
Not sure.
It is pretty cool though. I just posted a thing the other day and it was like Team USA versus the world versus Team World. And you can make the argument that the world has like the better top line talent like Luca and Embiid and Jokic and Giannis compared to the USA. I mean, the USA is always going to have
Yeah.
more depth, I guess. But I mean, the top line talent coming from international countries is insane. Have you kind of realized that going over there and seeing all these different dudes, maybe even young guys? I talked to Dakota Mathias one time, and he was telling me about how he was in the Spanish league the same time Luca was, and he was like, "This dude's different."
Yeah.
But now, have you seen any dudes over there like just a team that's a lot of international guys that you're like, oh, okay, these dudes are actually legit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the coolest thing about playing overseas is you get the both sides of it. So you get like, dang, there's a lot of good American players because every team. So the way it works in Germany, the way I play, you are required to have 6 Germans, and then you can have 6 players from anywhere else. So then I count as anywhere else.
Mhm.
So either you have a German passport, or even anywhere else. They don't care where you're from, but usually it's like 4 or 5 Americans. Um, so just kind of seeing guys, and you're like, you might not have heard of them on like a national stage, but they're still like such high levels, such good players. So that's one side. So it's kind of like going against what you said. We're like, man, these Americans, like, yeah, kind of honestly going with you. The depth of talent is so insane.
Mhm.
Again, none of these guys might have ever played in the NBA, but they're still such good players. Just this last year, just seeing all these guys, and you're like, oh, I kind of remember him from somewhere. If you really were into college basketball, if you were like really knew everyone on every team, then you might know some of these guys. But it's like, and they've made awesome careers for themselves over in Europe. But then the same thing with like the European talent. There's so many great young players walking around, and just kind of being more plugged into that scene. Like even my Instagram, my Instagram now, I suddenly get all the European videos. I get all the Euro hoops, all the European basketball pages about the Euro League. I get all the overtime Europe videos. So I'm suddenly like way more plugged into like all the young guys over here and seeing that talent. And it's just insane the amount of talent that's walking around here. And sports really are global, and the
Mhm.
NBA is becoming more and more global. And it's super, I think it's super fun to see that. You could make an argument that like half of the top 10 players in the NBA are not from the US. It's going to be the first time ever.
No doubt. And I think the reason I thought or that I think the younger guys, especially from international countries, they're getting plucked from the NBA by the time they're 18. They're not a lot of those guys that are like, I mean, maybe even some of the draft and stash guys that you'd see a few years ago. They're not making it back over to the NBA. I mean, the NBA is only taking like the top dudes. Like I think Usman Jang was a first round pick this year. Nikola
Mhm.
Jovic was a
Yep.
first round pick this year. So like those guys will be mainstays in the NBA. But then, I mean, obviously you got the Lucas and the MBs and all those dudes.
Of course.
But if you're not to that level, then they're gonna let you go back overseas.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at a guy like I remember from a few years ago, I believe he was in the either the Porzingis draft or the year after the Porzingis draft. So, but it's Gershon Yabusele. Drafted by Boston Celtics with the 16th overall pick. Never really, he was an NBA player, but never really panned out in the way I guess that they wanted him to. And now he's playing for Real Madrid,
Mm,
and he's probably like he has an argument for being their best player. And I just think that's awesome. Kind of seeing those kind of guys. They have a real opportunity at the EuroLeague is such a high level of competition. A guy that you'll of course know is Nikola Mirotic, who is the EuroLeague MVP this past year. And he's a guy that could have legitimately still been making like 10 million over in the NBA, but decided to go play for Barcelona. You have guys like Shane Larkin walking around, Isaiah Kanan walking around, OJ Mayo was even playing the same team as Isaiah Kanan. So kind of seeing that at that top level, you really do get those like mainstay level guys coming out. But then at the lower levels, you find a bunch of like American guys that you're like, even at the top levels, you're like, I'm not really sure about this guy. You're like, oh, he was really good for like a smaller school, or he was really good at just like a lesser known Power 5 school. And then you see their journey and they work themselves all the way up to get to that top level. And I think it's awesome that, I've learned so much about European basketball this past year, and seeing how many guys get to make an amazing living for themselves over here too.
And someone, I don't know if you played against him, but played in Germany this past year was Deshaun Thomas, who's an All-American at Ohio State. He's been a few different places. He was in Japan before this year, playing for Bayern Munich. But he's a dude that's a legend, a college basketball legend over here. Goes over there and is making a great career for himself.
Yeah, he's a fantastic player. I played against him twice last year. Both home and away. I played against them. The thing about those teams like Bayern and Alba Berlin and those guys in the EuroLeague that play both in the EuroLeague and in our league and the German domestic league is they play so many games because they play a double schedule. Because in the EuroLeague they play 18 teams, they play them all twice, so 34 games, and then our league is the same, 18 teams play them all twice. So they're playing like 60 plus games, and they're playing 2 playoffs. They made the playoffs in the EuroLeague, and then they're probably going to go to the finals, which they did this year, in Germany. So they have so much. So then you kind of get like the load management aspect of it, where sometimes they just don't play. But I got lucky and kind of, seeing most of their really good players play against us. And he's an amazing guy. He's really fiery. He kind of reminds, he's a really good offensive player, but he's super he's got a lot of energy, a lot of passion for the game, kind of like a Draymond Green kind of out there, I guess. Very different. He's a lot more offense than Draymond is. But that left hand is killer. And so it's always like, he's left-handed, don't let him go to his left. And then every time you're like, you have like 18 points, and he's like, oh, left hand every time. You're like, how does he keep doing it?
I think
he's a great player, man.
I think Gavin Schilling was on that team too.
Yeah, Gavin Schilling was also on that team. Yeah, he is an enforcer. He's just a brute. He's a brute force guy, and he was super. He was a fun test as well. He played really well. I only played him once because I believe the second time he was out for some reason, injury, sickness, something like that. But he had a really good game that first game against us, and that was kind of like a bit of this is the real high level guys out here. This is what they're going to throw at you because he's just such a physical presence. Maybe if you look at him like at Michigan State, you're like, oh, you might not be super impressed, but a guy like that has just grown exponentially since then. I feel like you see a lot of that in Europe. You see a lot of guys you have guys like Deshaun Thomas who are just like up here the whole time. And you have a guy like Gavin Schilling where you watch him at Michigan State and you're like, hey, he played his role really well, but he wasn't really allowed to grow outside of that role. And then now he excels in like a bigger role, which at Bayern sometimes there's still guys in front of him because you're playing at such a high level. But in Germany, he's really been able to like flourish beyond what he was in college, which I also think is awesome. I think it's awesome that you see guys coming out of college and they get so much better when they go to Europe.
Another guy like that, Jordan Taylor. I don't know if you remember him. He played for Wisconsin, was like up there, first team All Big Ten, like 2 or 3 straight years. I mean, he's over in Japan. John Octius is over in Japan. I don't know where he's playing.
People love Japan nowadays.
What's up?
People love Japan. Japan is like, everyone loves it. You talk to anyone, if you talk to anyone, so last year I had a teammate that played in Japan. He's actually going back to Japan now to play, I believe, in the second league even. And those guys all love it. Like the fan experience is so awesome. It's some of the most like love you're gonna get from fans. Like, it's all like very well set up because so baseball is their religion basically, right? At this point, like they love baseball, and then basketball is getting to a point they really love it. Guys like Rui Hachimura made it like really elevated the game in Japan, and they just love it. Apparently, everyone I talk to that's been in Japan, my wife's in a like this Facebook group with all like the players' wives and stuff, and they all talk about how much they love Japan. She follows this podcast with these two girls that are, or two women that are wives to two players that are both playing in Japan, and they've become really good friends because just because they're similar experiences. And these two women on that podcast, they love Japan so much, and they all talk about, like, anyone I talk to, they're like, Japan's my favorite place ever. So everyone's trying to get over there somehow. I'm like, hey, I'm good in Europe. I don't know about Japan. It seems that everyone loves it, which I think is awesome. Like, you can really play anywhere now. You know, like Japan's an awesome league. You know, South Korea, people have a lot of respect for. A lot of leagues in Southeast Asia are becoming bigger. You know, like Philippines has always kind of been a big one for kind of some of those like top tier NBA guys that Philippines have like one foreigner that they like pay a lot. Australia, of course, is becoming a legitimate league, even when they only have like 2 foreigner slots. Just with domestic talent, they've become awesome. You can go play anywhere nowadays, and it's super fun. I love it. It's just a lot harder to keep track of because I keep seeing these guys. I'm like, oh, I wonder where he is, and you're like, oh, he's been in Japan for the last 4 years playing for, I don't know where any of these teams are. But they're all good, and they're all, you know, it's all just super fun. Like, basketball is global. You can play anywhere now and get paid and make a great career out of it.
And like Michael Beasley a few years ago was playing down in Puerto Rico.
Yeah. That's a big central, like some of the central, that's the one. I don't know anything about those leagues. And there's hundreds of players down there playing in Central America, playing in South America. And I don't know anyone that's played down there, but that's like its whole own ecosystem. You know, same with kind of like the Southeast Asian leagues. Those are all like, you got to get in, you got to get your foot in the door, and then it kind of opens up to you. Europe, I believe, is a lot more accessible. Like, if you're, for like a guy like me, I'm coming out of college, you know, I had a good college career, you know, college career I'm super proud of. You can get your foot in the door in Europe at a certain level. But even a guy like this last year, I had two guys on my team. Names are Rashid Moore and Donovan Donaldson. And those guys were both great players. And they played Division II. They played Division II, you know, were really good there. And then Rashid worked his way up from the 4th league in Germany. So he would play in the 4th league, and he was on that same team and promoted every year until they were, I believe, in the 2nd league. And then he moved up to my team, the team that we were both playing for last year, Frankfurt. And then my other teammate, Donovan Donaldson, made his start in Macedonia, then went to the Hungarian league, and then ended up in Germany this past year. So that's the kind of stuff I love. You know, you can play anywhere, and there's a path to these higher level leagues. You know, like, there's really an opportunity for you to grow every single year. Like, you don't, just because I play in Germany now doesn't mean I'll be there 2 years from now. You know, like, I have an opportunity to keep growing, and even guys that start in a league that is maybe not as you know, held as in as high of a regard as Germany or Spain or any of those leagues, they still have the opportunity to be in 2 years, you know, be from Macedonia to Germany. I think that's just awesome. There's so much mobility. I love that.
It is really cool because, I mean, a lot of them are like 1 or 2 year contracts. I'm not super well versed in terms of all that behind the scenes stuff, but like, you signed a 2 year contract. I know Deshaun signed a 1 year deal. I mean, you can go from country to country every year if you really wanted to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of guys treat it like that too. Like, it's like an adventure for some guys. You know, like the room, you know, like, or not the rumor, I guess the stereotype about like the American players, they'll go anywhere for like a dime more. They're like, oh, we'll pay you $1,001, and they're like, you got me, you got me here, man. But I think a lot of those guys just take it as like an adventure, you know, which it is an adventure in its own way. You know, some guys just take it as their way to see the world and experience different cultures and experience new parts of the world. I think that's awesome too. You know, like, I think Deshaun Thomas just signed, I believe he just signed in Italy, with either Milan or Italy has 2. They have 2 EuroLeague new teams now. I know he signed in the EuroLeague. I just know, I just forgot which one. I believe it's Milan, which is a beautiful city as well.
Yeah, that'd be sick. And then, you know, a place that I never dreamed of that most of the people I've talked to absolutely love, Istanbul, Turkey.
People love Istanbul. Yeah.
They said it's like,
well.
they said it's like Miami. I don't know if there's a ocean there, but I guess the feel.
So it's right on. So if you know Turkey, you have like the European part. That's like the really, and then it has the channel to the Black Sea. So it goes from the Mediterranean or it's not the Mediterranean anymore. It's the sea that Greece is right there. Greece is the sea with all that on it. And it's the channel to the Black Sea, I believe. And then you have like the big part of Turkey. So it's kind of that little part on like where the little the really tiny part that's European and the Asian part meet. That's Istanbul, and it's the biggest. I believe it's the biggest city in Europe. People love Istanbul. It's insane. I know a guy that played there this past year for FS, which was the EuroLeague champion. Elijah Bryant out of BYU played there. This year won the EuroLeague championship with them. He does a bunch of vlogs. I don't really speak to him personally all the time, but it seems like he's having an awesome time. I know him and his wife do like vlogs and stuff, kind of that stuff like that, and it looks beautiful over there. Another teammate of mine actually from this past year would tell me, like, he was playing in Turkey somewhere else. He would be like, well, on our off day, we just take a plane to Istanbul and go have a great time there, and go enjoy Istanbul. So people love it there. Turkish league also one of the best leagues in Europe as well. Turkey, you have you hear a lot of problems. You hear a lot of stuff about problems with like Enes Kanter and stuff, but a lot of these guys experience it as one of like the most amazing experiences. Like, the league is super high quality, super high level of competition. The pay is very good. Turkey's really known for that. FS and Fenerbahce are some of the best paying teams that you're going to find in Europe with the highest budgets, rivaling teams like Barcelona and Real Madrid. But I think it's like that for a lot of countries, because most American guys, or people like me, even like Europeans that aren't as well versed in Europe, you're gonna come over and you're gonna spend time in a place you've never been to, and then a lot of places have the opportunity to become your favorite. So for a lot of those guys, they find a place and they fall in love with it. Like, guys end up playing, like, you go play in Milan or somewhere in Italy, you fall in love with it. You go play somewhere in France. Mike James this past year was playing in Monaco. How cool is that?
That's awesome.
Living with a bunch of millionaires. Probably a real expensive year for him, but come on, it sounds awesome. Like, and all these places have kind of the opportunity to become like your favorite place because you've never been there. You probably didn't know much about it before. So it's just kind of ties back into that, like, adventure aspect of this career overseas. Everyone can go live in Orlando. Not everyone can go live, in Monaco and in Istanbul and Belgrade and all these amazing cities in Europe.
And there's good leagues everywhere. Like, I know a guy that played in the Czech Republic last year. I know a guy, talk about South America. I know you touched on it a little earlier. Former Purdue guy, Kelsey Barlow, played in Uruguay. Gary Forbes, who played in the NBA, he was on the Nuggets when they had like Melo. He played in Argentina. So I mean, you can go everywhere, make a pretty good living, play basketball, live out your dream, and then have an awesome life outside of basketball too. Just seeing the world and getting experiences that you never in a million years did you think you'd get when you were little.
For sure, yeah, and I think that's such a great aspect of this. It's in college, of course, you have like your little, like, your cost of attendance check. Now it's all different with NIL. I'm pre NIL. I'm pre big money college. But when I was there, you got like your little check and you paid your rent. The check was gone basically. And now at the end of the month, I get my check, I pay my rent. I'm like, wow, hey, I can actually like live off this. Like, a lot of the times it's still just kind of like a surprise to me that, hey, this is actually my job. I go to work and I go play basketball. That's my job. It beats being in an office. So I'm just grateful for the ability to do that. It's literally every month I like see the money come in and I pay rent. I'm like, oh, I forgot we have like so much more money. Like, I can live off this and be fine and do good and still have some money left over to save up and go do fun stuff with, or just save it up and make plans for the future with. Like, it's so weird to just be like, yeah, my job, I'm a professional basketball player. Still feels weird, even though I've done a year of it now.
Well, hey man, you're living it now. You're living it now. So now there's a bunch of like NBA guys, and you hear those stories of like even Delonte West. I don't know if you've seen those things, but like they spend too much of their money and they fall on hard times and they end up being homeless or have to sell everything. Is that a common theme in like Europe or overseas leagues as well?
I haven't really seen it yet. All the American guys, at least I played with this past year, were pretty frugal. They were really aware of what they were making. The exchange rate, they were always aware of the exchange rate. I had a guy on my team his name is Montez Robertson. He plays. He's actually playing in TBT now for the Auburn alumni team as well. But he's played over there in Germany since I believe 2009. 2009, 2010 season for the exact team for the Frankfurt Skyliners. He's played there his whole career. And he always talks about, this year especially, he was always like, yeah, before, my first year I was making $1.40 for every euro I made, and now he's only making, it's 1-to-1 basically. So he's making like even. But a lot of those guys seem really savvy with it. They've invested, they've bought houses. A lot of them have their house back in the States. Most of the veteran guys, of course, guys like a couple guys were like 24, 25. They probably don't have that lined up yet. But Fuentes is 37. He had a house. He has a wife and 3 kids, and have a house to go back to in Alabama in the summers. Another teammate of mine, his name's Will Cherry. I believe he had a house over in the Bay. He's from the Bay Area, so he has a house over there. Those guys kind of seem pretty savvy with their money. It's not easy being over there. So I feel like most guys like to kind of have their summer, like in their post playing career, they have that like figured out. It's also not as glamorous as the NBA. It's harder to get caught up in like the glamour of it. You're not making $50 million and expected to like go out with celebrities all the time. It's a pretty normal gig on most days. It's not really getting recognized all the time. It's a little less glamorous, but I think that might be good. Guys are just a little safer with what they're spending and what they're what they're doing with their money.
And you're more so focused on the game and training and things like that, as opposed to what you're doing after the game and all that stuff. But yeah, like you mentioned, you're not getting paid. Like Damian Lillard just got 120 over 2. He's making $60 million a year. That's absolutely insane.
And there's guys in Europe making like a guy like Shane Larkin's making, I think, 7 or 8 million. I think Nikola Mirotic is on that kind of money. But those are kind of the top end, like 5 to 8 million are like your top end guys. But even then, like you're also worried about like living in a foreign country. It's like very different. It's like a very different environment. Even though it's beautiful for a lot of people, they really love their city. Frankfurt is pretty normal. It's nothing insane, but it's a great. I really love the place that I live in and that kind of stuff. But it's also you gotta like focus on like day-to-day things are a little more difficult. You gotta figure stuff out. Like how does this work? Like they're figuring out like the culture and stuff. So if you're only there for a year, it might take you a few months to figure that out, like and adjust. So it's it kind of keeps you I think it keeps you real grounded. It keeps you real close to the ground. You can't really go floating off. You're like, oh, I'm doing this and this and this, and I'm going out, I'm throwing hundreds at the club. Like, no, like you gotta figure out how to pay your German taxes, dude.
How hard is that?
No, it's really easy.
Okay, fair enough.
It's America's the hardest place to do it.
That's not surprising. We make everything hard. I do want to go back to how you were talking about the different levels of leagues. It's like, I mean, it's not the same thing, but it is kind of similar to like a minor league system where you have 4 leagues and you kind of work your way up each year to get to the top league in your country. What's that been like? I mean, you kind of skipped the line, but what is it like to see some of those guys that have gone through that journey?
Yeah, I did kind of skip the line, but there's still a lot of the line left for me. It's there's a whole like tier system, and it's like, yeah, your team is good within your domestic league, but they're not playing any international competitions. Like there's this whole thing. So you have all your countries, right? Like smaller countries usually have like smaller leagues. Kind of how it goes. Germany has like 80 million residents. So there's going to be a little more money. There's going to be more people interested in basketball in a smaller country. That's like the Netherlands. They have some really good high quality teams, but the depth isn't there like it is in Germany. They have 10 teams in the Netherlands. Germany has 18. And there's still like great talent on all those teams. Where in the Netherlands, the depth isn't there like it is in Germany. But yeah, but the thing too is within Germany, you also like down in the 3rd league, you're still going to find some Americans playing in the 3rd league in Germany. The 4th league, you start getting real, like, my former teammate Rashid, he played in the 4th league, but I think you're going to start finding it real hard to find any foreigners when you get down there. But just the ability to do that, for a guy like Rashid to come up through that, there's so many avenues to make it to where you want to be. But then outside of like the domestic leagues, You have your international competitions. There's 4 of them. You know the EuroLeague probably. Then there's the Euro Cup. It's going to start getting real confusing. So if the Euro Cup, if you win the Euro Cup, you get to go to the EuroLeague. So that's like the big advantage. Because you want to be in the EuroLeague. You want to be in the EuroLeague real bad. That's the best one. Then you have the Euro Cup. But then those are its own organization. Those are managed by the EuroLeague, EuroLeague Incorporated. Then FIBA was like, we want a slice of this too. So they started the Champions League and the FIBA Europe Cup, not the Euro, the Europe Cup. And then it starts getting real confusing. But kind of, so every team, in Germany, we have 2 EuroLeague teams. We had 2 Euro Cup teams this past year, and then 2 Champions League teams. And then a couple, 3, 4 teams playing in the Europe Cup. The Europe Cup is seen is I think pretty clearly the easiest to get into. So it's the most accessible for anyone. A team like Frankfurt played in the Europe Cup until a few years ago. They even won it back in 2016. But that's probably the most accessible. Then you get the Champions League, and the Champions League and the Euro Cup are pretty close to each other, I would say. The only thing about the Euro Cup is winning the Euro Cup, you get to go to the Euro League. Which is it outweighs it, But if you're on a team that's not winning, if you're on a team that's going to be like solid 8th in the Euro Cup, then yeah, okay, it's fine. Champions League and Euro Cup are probably even at that point in terms of like quality of teams. Teams are from all over the place. You'll get teams from bigger countries, you'll get teams from smaller countries, but they'll be all over the place, just the same. The 2 teams in Euro Cup in Germany last year were, believe the 2 teams in Champions League. I always forget. I always get caught up. But like all of Spain is playing in those competitions, and the teams in Euro Cup and Champions League are not that different. They're just both super high quality teams. The only time where you get real separation is those EuroLeague teams, just because the budgets they start like skyrocketing because the money. EuroLeague is where you want to be basically. So in addition to my whole domestic leagues where you can go play in a good league in the second league in a big country or the first league in like a smaller country, you can work your way through all that. You also have to take into account, hey, are they playing once a week? If you're playing once a week, you're not playing in Europe Cup, Champions League, Euro Cup, or EuroLeague, which is what Frankfurt does. They're not in any international competition. You also got to take all that into account when you go sign a new deal. It's ridiculous. It's a whole spreadsheet of stuff you got to figure out every time you're going to play someone.
It's so confusing, especially here. Like we have the NBA, they have their schedule, and then you look over there. I mean, if you were a college guy like yourself and you didn't know anything about overseas basketball, and you go and look and you have all these things, I'd be so scared. I'd be like, what is going on over here?
It is, that's why it is tough, like not even that, but just figuring out a whole new world, basically. Even for me, I was experiencing some hefty culture shock, moving out there with my wife to Frankfurt. I experienced a pretty hefty culture shock. You're like, whoa, this is like different. This is real weird. Like Germany is a lot different from the Netherlands. And even I'm not really used to that. I'm experiencing a culture shock being home in the Netherlands right now. I'm like, oh my God, it's coming home throughout the season was like weird. It's like, well, I haven't been here at all, basically, for like outside of like a month a year where I was just working out and in training to go back to the US. So it is really tough for a lot of those guys, And then you also have to figure out, like, thankfully, you have an agent for that. That's what I pay my agent for. I pay my agent to like explain it to me, like, hey, they're good and they're gonna pay you a lot of money. But yeah, if you're looking to play at the highest level of competition, those are all things you got to take into account. Hey, am I playing in a good league? Okay, check. I'm playing in a good league now. I'm playing in a high level league, probably in my opinion, one of the best in Europe. Depends on who you ask. If you ask a Frenchman, they'll probably say the French league better than German league. Same with an Italian. We just all know Spain is probably the best league. Turkey probably pretty close behind. But then France, Italy, Germany, I think they're right there between each other. So for me right now, it's just about working my way up, and that might be with Frankfurt. If we put down a great season and Frankfurt saying, hey, we have an opportunity to go play in the Champions League, something like that, then it might be like that. But you never know. You never know how your career is going to go. I know I'm happy where I am. I know I have another year on my contract, and I'll go think about all that confusing stuff once this season's over.
Yeah, I don't know how people like you do it. I'd be so confused. I'd be
You
lost
just
over there.
forget it. You push it all away until the season's over. That's what you do.
You procrastinate.
My head starts hurting whenever I think about it. So I'm just like, okay, first I got to play Eurobasket. Then I got to go to work. Then I just got to go play in Germany. And then after that, in the summer when I'm off, then my agent's going to see. That's the thing. Here's the thing, too. Not every single team is going to call me. It's not like, just if you're an NBA free agent, you don't have to look at houses in every single city. Because let's say if just Minnesota and Portland are calling you, well, yeah, you only have to look at a place that, you only have to figure out what's going on over there. You're not going to go look at houses in Miami when the Minnesota Timberwolves just offered you a contract.
Yeah.
So it's the same way for me. I'm not going to go figure out all this other stuff until they actually call me. Like, hey, we'd love you on the team. I'm like, okay, let's do our research. In the off season, of course. I got too much to worry about right now to do all that.
How much research? I mean, maybe some of your teammates have told you this, or I don't know how much research went into signing with the Skyliners, but how much research kind of goes into, so say like 4 teams contact you, how much are you going to research them and kind of see their background, where they're from, and all that stuff?
We're sorry, you lost me for a second there. You said my teammates or the team and stuff?
So your teammates, you might have talked to them about this more. I don't know how much went into signing with the Skyliners, but how much kind of research goes into picking a team like that's, so say like 4 teams are contacting you. How much goes into you like looking into their background and places to live there and all those different things before you make a final decision?
See, here's the thing. I think you'd be better off asking a guy like Deshaun Thomas this question.
Yeah.
Because I've had one opportunity to do it, and I had a clear best offer.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't really like thinking about all this other stuff. I wasn't looking for houses in these other places. I was gonna go to Frankfurt. That was my clear best offer, and so I was just doing research into Frankfurt basically. There wasn't like all this other stuff I had to worry about. So it was real easy. It might be really difficult next summer to figure out where I want to go. Once there's like multiple teams that want you at like a similar rate, playing similar levels of competition in similar leagues, and then you start asking questions like team fit. Once everything evens out, you're like, hey, what country do I want to live in more? But I've had it real easy this first year, so honestly, I don't know. You should get a more experienced European player to come on to talk about that because I've had it real easy.
Fair enough. All right, I promise you this. We're gonna shift gears here. Talk a little UFC. We talked last time. I didn't know you were a UFC fan. You brought it up near the very end.
Yeah.
So UFC 277 this Saturday. Juliana Pena versus Amanda Nunes 2 is the main event, and then you got Brandon Moreno against Kai Car-France. I mean, how excited are you for this, and what are you looking forward to?
I'm very excited for you. I'm gonna pull it up real quick just so I have it on here. Yeah, I'm super excited for it. It's gonna be a fun card. Let me just see these beautiful times. Of course, the main card starts at 4 a.m. Central European Standard Time. Just want to just really talk about this and talk about those without a voice, the European fans. We are constantly disrespected by Dana White. Please, Mr. Dana White, more European cards. Or Abu Dhabi. Even Abu Dhabi would be pretty good. But please, Mr. Dana White, more European cards. But I'm super excited for it. I gotta switch gears in my head here because I'm still thinking about European leagues. That's all like stuck in my head right now. But I'm super excited for it, man. Maybe I'll watch. Maybe I will. Let's see. Wait. I am on a Sunday. I practice. So I'm off tomorrow. So if it was like this morning, it'd be perfect. But the fact that it's on a Saturday night, which means it's on a Sunday morning, makes it real difficult because I just practice. I go into practice again on Sunday. So maybe if I go to bed real early, we'll think about it. But I'm super excited for it. I think the first fight for Pena Nunez was kind of disappointing for a lot of people. Well, it was super shocking, but just kind of seeing the performance from Amanda Nunez was pretty weird. And then I haven't watched The Ultimate Fighter, but I've heard some stuff where everyone is like, how the Instagram people are, they're like, Pena's in Nunez's head. She's going crazy. She's like trying to fight all the time. I'm like, I haven't watched a single episode of The Ultimate Fighter ever. See, that's the thing. Like all these people watch. I remember last year with the Volk Ortega, and everyone just hated Ortega. Everyone's like, he's so lazy. He's never there. I mean, that ended up turning out to the 50-45 for Volk. So maybe it does carry a weight. The Ultimate Fighter stuff carries some weight, but I think it's going to be a fun card. Let's see. I don't know what else is on that card, honestly, because I just get it's just so frustrating. This European stuff, But I think it should be fun. Oh yeah, we got Derek Lewis on the card. It'll be fun. Pantoja should be super fun. Probably the guy in waiting in that flyweight, that flyweight division with that interim title bout. Pantoja was probably there, like, yeah, we'll put you in the card. And one of these guys get hurt, you'll be in there.
He should be fighting. He should be fighting for the title, in my opinion.
Flyweight's weird, man. They love having those two. There's only two guys that people know. Carl Franz barely got known off like his last fight. People now know who he is. And I mean, even me, like, I struggle. Like, I feel like I watch a lot of UFC. I feel like I've risen like one step beyond casual fan who talks trash on Instagram. Like just one level above that probably. But flyweight's like you're like sitting there, and it was was it Askar Askarov, Pantoja, Kara France, Moreno, and Figueiredo. And then then it's starting to get real blurry. Outside.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, okay, we're just gonna have the two guys because nobody cares about flyweight apparently.
I love it. It's one of my favorite divisions to watch.
Okay, see, that's the thing. I think some people like it. The more like you're into the sport, I think you like it. But there's nothing more that Dana White loves than having two big heavyweights just slugging it out for 25 minutes, just staring at each other across the octagon. So for some reason, they don't like flyweight. I mean, look at Mighty Mouse was disrespected for like a long time.
Oh no.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, all right, we're back.
You talking about Mighty Mouse?
Yeah, just saying that. They just disrespect them. Like those little guys, the smaller they get, the less they care. Even though bantamweight's the best division in the UFC right now, and was the first time we talked as well, I think.
Yeah, they're about to have Aljamain against TJ Dillashaw, and then Sean O'Malley against Peter Yan, which is going to be crazy.
That's a clamshell of a fight. Absolute clamshell. See, this is what I hate about the UFC. I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's the most fun fight. I don't know. But it feels like there's a lot more guys that deserve it more. The dude, no contest against Munoz. Was it Roberto Munoz? No contest because you poke him in his eye. Controversial eye poke, by the way. But no contest because you poke him in the eye. And then you're going to go fight a guy who some people think should still be the champ.
Crazy.
I don't know about that.
I mean, hats off to him if you're going to take that. Peter Yan's scary. He's a scary opponent. So if you're going to
take an absolute beating, I'm calling this right now. I mean, here's the thing. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about that as the fight approaches. But he's going to take an absolute beating from Peter Yan.
I think you will too.
Because he's not better than any of the guys that Jan's fought. He's not even close. I don't think he's close. And Peter Yan beats guys up. Like
lately, I would agree with you, but Peter Yan's like rise to the top. He beat like Uriah Faber, who was on his way out anyway. Yeah. Jimmy Rivera, who was on a 3 or 4 fight skid. I forget who he fought before that, but yeah, recently, I mean, he beat up Aljamain in the first fight. Beat Sandhagen.
Yeah, he did. I mean, that's the thing. In the first fight, he lost the belt, of course, but he was beating him up until that. And then I guess there was some controversy in the second fight. Like some people, probably mostly Russians, believe that he should still have the belt. But I thought it was pretty clear, Aljamain. But then for some reason, Sandhagen, yeah, of course, he fought Sandhagen as well. I mean, Sandhagen's no joke either in that division. So it's man, that's a good division. So great. So now you're gonna let the guy that was just absolute can crusher that was saying he wanted to keep crushing cans until he got a new contract. Now you're gonna go let him fight the second best guy in that division, the clear number 1 contender. Which you can't put him out there again, I guess, right now. You can't put Aljo and Yan out there again, but So, but he is still to me the #1 contender. You know, that doesn't mean he deserves the current title fight because it's probably I guess it's Dillashaw or Aldo, but you know, like he's up there. He's the best guy in that division beyond Aljo, and now you're gonna just let him. No, I guess he's got to crush a can now to get back to the title. But that'll be a fun one to see. I do think that Aljo fight will be good as well. Dillashaw, we'll see how he holds up.
Yeah, and then I mean, we didn't even mention Dominic Cruz, who's I think he's on 2 or 3 fight win streak right now.
Right, yeah.
Adrian
Yanez still there.
My boy Adrian Yanez coming into the ring.
Your guy Yanez.
Song Yadong.
Is he still calling out O'Malley?
I think he let that go.
He just needed smart of him. O'Malley was just O'Malley wasn't gonna fight him.
He got a fight booked. He's getting a fight booked soon. He's waiting on a confirmation, but he verbally agreed to a fight. I don't know who it'll be. I haven't talked to him.
That'll be exciting. But that's that division is just insane. Like there's probably because I don't, once it goes beyond the rankings, I'm not your guy anymore. Once we start talking 15 deep outside, like there's some guys that can just talk like 50 guys deep at lightweight. I'm like, sorry, I'm not your guy there. Like I talk about the big fights. I'll talk like I'll watch like the prelim headliner sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But I love the UFC, but I love the guys that are really telling the stories. And to me, like the guys on the prelims usually aren't telling the stories like that. Sometimes they are. Sometimes there's some great action on the prelims, but I think that's more for the fight fanatics. Mm-hmm. I really love like the storytelling aspect of kind of guys coming in with certain stories, kind of that aspect of it I really enjoy. Just the promotional aspect of it I really enjoy. So I can't go 50 deep at lightweight with you to talk about some Russian sambo guy who just came over after winning the World Sambo Championship. I can't be like, oh, this guy just won the brown belt no-gi BJJ Championship. Like I can't talk about that with you. But I can talk about all these main events and the big fights and all that. Oh, I just love that kind of stuff. I feel like last time we talked, it was the Usman show because we just talked about Kamaru.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And how none of them were fighting each other.
Yeah, he's been like fairly active.
Kamaru's the only one that wants to fight people in that division. Yeah,
I know.
Everyone will sign the contract with Kamaru Usman. Duh.
Well, he's getting
the contract.
He's getting the Leon fight.
Right now. Yeah. And
that would be a good fight.
He had to take a little time off. Of course, he had the hand injury, I think, after the Colby fight. So, but yeah, after Edwards, it starts looking who's up. Who they got up after Edwards?
It's gonna be personally, I think it's gonna be Chimaev after he sends Nate Diaz away from the UFC.
Oh yeah, are they actually gonna do that? Chimaev loves Chimaev and Burns are like that. Like Burns, I know Burns is actually game ready at all times. He's ready to fight. Only guy that's ready to fight at all times. But Burns literally will enter himself in any conversation. I'm starting to expect when I ever see like a flyweight calling for a fight, I expect Burns being in there with the little raised hand emoji. He loves doing that. He's always like, "Oh, send the contract." Like, dude is just itching for a fight at all times. But I feel like him and Chimaev are the same way. Chimaev, they never get the fight that they actually talk about. So we'll see with Chimaev.
Well, I don't know if I felt bad, but Neil Magny was calling for Chimaev for a long time. But I think Chimaev would have ran through him personally. And I think Chimaev's going to run.
It's pretty clear what level he is.
I think Chimaev's going to run through Nate. I really do. I think Nate.
I mean, Leon ran through Nate.
Well, I do think Leon's probably better technically on the feet.
Well, does it matter? Chimaev is absolute sledgehammer of a human being.
That's true. But
that's like you see like the stuff in the NBA memes that are like, "Ooh, advanced analytics, blah 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 blah." Versus he's got that dog in him.
Yeah,
he just got that dog in him, man. I saw him pick up a man, carrying him to Dana White just so he could talk to Dana White while he's beating him up.
It's crazy.
I think that goes beyond like technical striking and ability on the ground. At some point, you just picked up a grown man and threw him to the cage and started beating him up. That guy was no joke either. It's a Chinese guy. He was no joke either. So he's top 10 ranked, like top 15 ranked fighter. So that's a fun division. The one I think since we talked last time, I think the most interesting storyline is Izzy becoming people not liking Izzy anymore.
It's because
But not because of the cringy antics, but just because he's boring now.
Oh, Jesus. I mean, it was like, especially after some of the other fights on that card, you like were really expecting something spectacular, but like,
Yeah.
he's playing it safe. Like I can't blame him for that.
Yeah. I love that. I just think that, I mean, especially now with people seeing similar dominance from these other champs. There's some pretty dominant champs in the UFC right now, like Volk. And Volk is just blood sport. Volk was actually about to kill Ortega. He was about to kill Max. He's actually about to murder those guys if they give him another round. Like at some point, Max is always going to keep walking forward because he's like a zombie. Korean zombie, same thing. Speaking of zombie, he's running through these guys and he's like showing them how good he is. He can't get hit. He hits them hard. He puts damage on. And just to see Adesanya kind of point kicking you from like 19 feet away, just kind of like kicking you with his million feet leg rip each. Kick, punch, punch, feint, 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 one punch. Like, it is pretty boring. Like, I don't know. I used to be a huge Izzy fan, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty boring. Like, did I ever realize this?
I think you're in for another boring. Either Izzy's gonna get a boring W, or Alex Pereira is gonna knock him out. Because Alex Pereira is no joke.
I mean, Alex Pereira knocking him out. That sounds like pretty fun to me.
That would be exciting. I would have
sport. Yeah, go. Let's do it, man. Let's see this happen. I mean, he's got to book it first. He just fought. Just fought. You gotta wait like a few more months. My biggest problem with the UFC. Can't these guys just recover in like a day?
I know. That'd be so nice.
Yeah, the future is bright, man. I freaking love UFC. I think I like the one thing though. After last time, I feel like I was gonna try. After our talk, I was like, yeah, I realized in my head, I was like, I watch all this UFC and I don't really watch all these other things. And then I moved to Europe and it became impossible to even watch UFC basically. So I really kept up with my promise to myself that I was going to try to watch Bellator. But what I hear from over there is that every time they have a good card, they somehow muck it up. Like every time they have a good card, there's like 5 unintentional eye pokes ending fights in a row or something like that. It happens every time.
I can't watch
stuff like Yoel Romero forgetting that the fights was only 3 rounds. You're like, wow, awesome guys. But I did watch ONE FC. My guy at I Needed It Either, Dutch Pride. That guy's a problem. That's all I'll say.
I haven't gotten into ONE FC, but I mean,
he's the double champ.
The talent coming out of there, like, I mean, I think Rod Tang fought in there. Mighty Mouse, obviously. The Lee.
Yeah, they had that crazy mixed rules fight. I also watched that. I watched the mixed rules Muay Thai MMA fight between Rod Tang and Mighty Mouse.
How was that?
He was like, Mighty Mouse ran away until they got the MMA rules and they put him on the ground and submitted him.
Yeah.
Come on.
It's so.
Yeah. What do you think?
Still pretty cool, but yeah. I remember seeing that, but I didn't get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, but if you're gonna watch one guy from ONE FC, it's a Reinier de Ridder, the Dutch Knight. That guy is a beast. He's a double champ. He doesn't care. He'll take every belt in there. He's probably because middleweight at ONE, they do the hydration testing, so he can't really cut. Can't really cut the weight like that. So he's 205 middleweight, I believe, in ONE, but he's a middleweight. So he's gonna challenge whoever wins that next fight. He's gonna come over. He's gonna beat everybody up, and then we're gonna have a Dutch champ.
That would be insane.
I got no more Overeem. To be hyped about. So this is my new hype train that I'm on.
Yeah, seeing Overeem go down is sad.
Poor guy. If he's fighting, I think he's fighting for Ufa now in Glory.
He was supposed to fight Rico Verhoeven.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, they're gonna fight kickboxing, I think.
I think they were supposed to, then Overeem pulled out. So Van Hooven fought somebody else, and then I think they're gonna rebook it.
He couldn't find any horse meat on short notice.
I know, for real. He's about to be juiced up to the gills.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be awesome.
I'll watch that. I'll watch those two guys go at it.
Well, hey man, I gotta wrap this thing up, but I really appreciate you coming on, taking the time to do this. All the best to you, you and your wife and your family back home in the Netherlands. I can't wait to do this again sometime soon.
Of course, man. I always really appreciate the podcast, but this has definitely been one of the most fun ones I've done. I'm glad to be a repeat guest now. I think this is my first repeat guesthood. So that's awesome. I'm super excited about that. And thanks for having me on, man. I always love the podcast, love the Instagram, love everything on there, So you're doing a great job, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, brother. Best of luck going forward.
All right. Thank you.